going to start in a minute. I appreciate that those who have joined have busy lives, and those who have registered will all get their webinar emailed to them. So just a few minutes, just a minute or so left. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for this webinar. It is going to be a very valuable way to look at money. And one of the things about the way we are dealing with money here is we're not using euphemisms such as abundance and prosperity. We are really what I hope to do today is to help you to be able to look squarely at various aspects of money and how how it's connected to us in mind and body in intricate ways that involve the mind and the body, and hope to give you some clarity on what you can do to sort of undo a lot of the beliefs that we have around money and move forward to create a new money story for you. As the title suggests, each one of us has a unique money story, and that is based on what we were exposed to. As some of the videos that I sent out said, they are formed often even in a pre-verbal stage, when we are just noticing things like money coming out or bills coming out, voices being raised. So a lot of what we don't even know, a lot of the stuff that we've absorbed as we were growing up about money. And some of the exercises here and in the coaching that I do make it really, really clear as to how those early experiences shaped how we see money today. So I guess I need the navigator. All right. So before we start, I want to set my intention for the webinar. And it is first that the information that is coming to you today, I want this to be exactly what you need to help guide you to exactly where you need to be in your life. I do believe that the universe, God, source, whatever name you use for our higher intelligence, brings you to exactly the right place and exposes you to what you need to hear. And so I am intending that you do get that message since you are here listening to this webinar. As I said before, I do appreciate that all of you are busy, and so I'm going to try and limit this webinar to an hour. And I'm going to pack as much information as I can into the time we have together. My goal is that when we end the presentation, you'll have clarity about how the money you earn, save, and owe is a function of mind and body responses based on early memories, and how they keep you stuck. More importantly, we'll also talk about techniques that reduce these responses and rewrite these responses. The second intention is the intention that I request that you set as we start this webinar. This work is deep. It brings up some very uncomfortable feelings. If you've read Janine Roth, who first wrote a book on weight loss and then wrote a book on money issues, and she, when she wrote her weight loss book, she had realized that most of us don't like to talk about what our actual weight is and all of the issues associated with that. But she was flabbergasted to find out that our secrecy around money goes way beyond anything that she had experienced when she was dealing with weight and body image. And so this is not going to be a comfortable kind of high, music and honey and milk kind of webinar. It is a webinar that asks you to look at difficult things. And if you're able to open yourself up and articulate the feelings and emotions that come up and face them clearly, the rewards are almost miraculous. So let's also set the intention that you're able to open yourself up to the clarity and guidance that the webinar seeks to provide. And as I say that, I also want to be really clear that I have no doubt in my mind that whatever comes through me to you is what you need to hear, and it is coming through source. So it is. I'm very humble when I present this. I know that I'm in this place presenting this to you because that's where God has led me today, and that's where God has brought you today. And so this is bigger than me and you, and I just want to also acknowledge that source is present here, and just want to say that I'm open to that and hope you are open to that. So at the end of the night, some of you will be satisfied with whatever clarity comes from this webinar, right? You will get a lot of clarity about your issues with money and the different types of money that we explore in this. Others will want to take the work further, and I will share with you ways in which you can do that. And those who stay till the end of the presentation will also get a gift at the end. So try and stay till the end of the presentation. I promise you it'll be worth it. It's not just for the gift, but primarily for the content that I will share with you. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. As you can see, I am of Indian origin, and I grew up in Bombay. I was 19 when my mother died in a plane crash. It was on December 31st, 1977, when the plane took off and crashed within 8 minutes. And she was the closest person, my closest friend. So that was my first real experience with how life can suddenly flip you around and change in a minute. I was married at 21, and I was a mother before I was 22. And my husband's a physician, and we moved between the Middle East and England and Canada and the United States. So over 20 times across 3 continents. In that time, I gathered 3 master's degrees and a doctoral degree, and did that while raising 2 amazing kids who are both adults now. And in that time, I became there is a story behind this. There is a reason to tell you all this. So I'm now a professional. I'm a senior research statistician. I'm also a blogger. I write and I coach, and I'm also a grandma. But an important thing to note is that despite all of that, right, despite having, if anyone else had looked at what I had done, they would think that I was an amazing person, that I have had to have been very organized. I have to have had a lot of determination. If I was looking at someone else who had done what I had done, I would have been so impressed with her. But for me, that was not the case. In spite of all of this, I was still constantly questioning my value. Every professional interaction I had, I was not sure of myself. I didn't think I knew enough. There was this constant sense of insecurity, a sense that I was somehow an imposter, and that somebody is about to find out and expose me for the fraud that I was. Some of you may relate to that. At the same time, there has always been this little voice inside me that says that you're meant to do something more. And all of these, the pursuit of all of these degrees and all of that was, in a certain sense, to answer that calling. But it felt as if it was still not being answered. And as I became, over the past 2 years, was when I started getting coached, and started sort of exploring my creative side in terms of blogging and writing. And over the past year, I've coached several people. And over that year, and with this work that I've been doing with meditation and tapping, and I now feel finally that I am in a place where I'm dropping the questions, where I was in a cage filled with, that was surrounding me, and the cage was made up of question marks about my value and my worth. Now, with the work that I've done, I feel that I'm now fully stepping into it. And that's the reason that I called my coaching business, I call it Freeing Ourselves, because it's about dropping the questions of value and worth. And one of the areas in which we have the maximum number of questions, and where the metaphor for our value in many instances, particularly in society today, is the question about money, right? So if we are able to work through our issues with money to build our sense of value and worth, that is reflected in all other parts of our life. So this is the beautiful logo that my brother, who's a graphic artist, designed for me. And it's just freeing ourselves from all of these questions that we constantly keep asking ourselves about our value and our worth. A little bit more about me and why, my big why, right? Why am I doing this? Why am I presenting this webinar today and sharing this work that I do with all of you? And so what I have here are some testimonials from my clients. And as you see, the first, each color represents a different one. I didn't want to put more in there, so I decided to put 3. the first client said that she was a catering client, a caterer, and she said she started standing up and sticking to the bids that she would submit for her catering services. So she began to recognize her value. When people in the past had challenged her about the costs that she was placing on her services, she would just cow down and lower her price because she was so worried about not getting the business. But after working with her, she said that she is able to stand up and say, no, the value that I give you is worth what I'm charging, and so I cannot lower my price. And as she says there, she's so proud of herself now, and when she started learning to do that in terms of her catering business, it translated into other things. Because in the same testimonial, she talks about how she's a single mom, and she was dating a guy, and she realized that he is not what she wants in her life. And before she had done this work, she would have just continued the relationship because she was so afraid of not having anyone. But in this instance, she realized that this is not what she wants. This is not where she wants her life to go. And she just drew that boundary and said, no, and stopped seeing the person. So although we started work with the money, it sort of translated into her showing her value and worth in other things. She's also now attending networking events. And as she says there, she used to stay in a corner and just hide, but now she can stand up and go and introduce herself. She feels like she belongs in those circles. So her entire approach to her business and her life and ability to take on challenges has changed. And it's such a rewarding experience seeing that and knowing that I had a role in holding the space for her to grow into her higher expression of herself. The next client, she is an actress, and she says that she has a new willingness and an enthusiasm to examine incidents. She's a person who has done a lot of work on herself before, but she's now, one of the things she said to me was that there is such a sense of calm within her that she has never experienced before. And so she's putting herself out there for auditions, and the state of mind with which she goes in to those auditions is just a night and day difference because of the extent of peace and calmness that have become part of her being as a result of the work that we've done. And as she says, she sees those changes beginning to manifest around her. Another client of mine that I worked with said recently that she had, when we started doing the work, she had a goal of $3,000 a month, and she started off with $1,200. As we started clearing some of these blocks, she found that her income was increasing, and the last month she actually hit her $3,000. And the important thing about it is that she didn't do anything special to attract new clients. All that she did was she did this work that she needed to do inside to remove the blocks, to see what the blocks were, to see and really some really, really deep work that included going back into her childhood and meditations and tapping that helped clear a lot of those blocks. So she now has a continuous stream of clients. So that is, for me, that's the big why. That is the reason to do this work. It is to help hold the space, to see what people are capable of, and hold the space for them to rise up and step up to their highest expression. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to work through the money, through our relationship with money. So, how many of you are wondering about the type of work I did to get these testimonials? I probably gave some of it away. But what we did was we did work with the unique money story and associated mind-body work. We also had some concrete work. So depending on the client and what their goals were, there is also some concrete work, such as developing mission statements, deciding which network meetings to go through, developing action plans. So it's not all just mind-body work, but mind-body work, and then buttressing that, deciding on the actions once there is clarity. So I'm hoping that you all are ready and getting clearer on what your unique money story is, to get clarity on that. And that's the biggest gift that you'll get today, that you'll get clarity on how different parts of money work for you in different ways, and how your mind and body is all tied together here. Now, before I start, I also want to acknowledge that I have found the biggest change for me has been in this past 5 or 6 months. I had started changing, but then when I started working with Margaret Lynch, you may have heard of her. She's the Tapping into Wealth. She wrote the book called Tapping into Wealth. And I found that when I started working with my clients with this work with money, the changes were like the changes that we just talked about. So she has, through working with hundreds of clients, thousands of clients actually, and training thousands of coaches, determined that there are 5 types of money. And she is the person who says that we're not going to talk about, just in euphemisms about abundance and prosperity and stuff like that. We really have to look at these 5 different aspects of money, and in order to be able to get clear on how we interact with each of those different things. So those 5 aspects of money are debt, savings, income goals, and toxic money. I'll try and get through as many of these as we can, but I also I want to give you enough time to take it in and to work through the exercises that we do. And again, before we start, like I said before, when we set the intention, money is a powerful metaphor. It brings up powerful emotions, and I just want you to be prepared for that. So one of the reasons, for those of you who registered for the webinar, I had sent you a video. I had asked you to download a video called Being Fully Present. And the reason I sent that to you and asked you to practice being fully present in your body is because I know that this is difficult work, and when we get stressed, we tend to be in our head. And so it's really important to bring yourself down into your body and be present here, so that you are also aware of exactly where you're feeling different emotions in your body, and be cognizant of that. So I hope that you listened to the video, and I hope that you did practice the meditation that came in with it. So I did send you a document in I know you might have gotten tired of all of the emails that I sent, but I wanted to be sure that, first of all, I'm excited about sharing this, but I also wanted to be sure that you didn't get the document too soon before the webinar, because then it wouldn't make any sense. So can I just see how many of you have the document in front of you? Do you have the money map in front of you? If you don't, you can just respond to the questions that I ask on a piece of paper, but you do need something to write stuff down on. Give me a sense of how many of you have the money map. I just sent you a chat message. So I am assuming that you have the money map in front of you. Okay. And the first type of money is savings. So I want you to take that document if you have it, and I want you to write down the total amount of savings that you have right now. And here we want to talk about liquid savings, right? So it's not what's in your 401k or a pension fund. It's the money that you will use if you have an emergency come up. And I'll tell you that when I started this program, the truth is that the amount of savings in my account was zero. Talk about a stressful number. So if it is, you just write that down. But you do need to put that down in black and white. Now take a deep breath. Feel yourself fully in your body. So I want you to just take a deep breath so that you feel the top of your head and the soles of your feet. You feel your arms, take a deep breath and let it go. And tell me what the first thing is that you feel. If you have your document in front of you, you can choose one of those feelings. Typically, people will feel savings is related to security, so you feel unsafe, you feel shame, you may feel some shame or embarrassment. You may feel anger, at me for forcing you to look at it. So write down what that first thing you feel is. Next, I want you to focus in on your body. So this is partly why that being fully present in your body is important. And Just want to give you a minute to write down exactly what you're feeling. And then I want you to write down what you're feeling in your body. Typical things would be your stress response, right? So you may feel tight in your chest, you may feel knots in your stomach. Depending on where you carry your stress, some people feel that their necks are becoming stiff. Others carry their stress in their shoulders. And for you, it might be something completely different. It might be your lower back, your lower abdomen. Just be fully present and clear about the emotions that you feel, and in a sense, where you feel them and what they feel like in your body. Take a look at the number again. Take a deep breath. And you might notice that there is a voice inside your head that's saying things to you. You're probably very familiar with that voice. That's the voice that kept telling me that I wasn't good enough, that despite my 3 master's degrees and a PhD, that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't know my subject matter, that no, I wasn't convincing anyone that I was good, and that I didn't deserve good things. So that voice, what does it say to you when you look at your savings? Some of the things clients have said to me are, you're a loser, that you are not good enough, that you're never safe. I understand this is very uncomfortable, uh, but it's important to really face and understand what this does to you. I also want you to finish the sentence. This amount of money in my savings account means that I am what? We will work on reducing the level of stress that you're feeling right now, but and I'm holding the space for you, for it to be okay to feel this. So we did a few things. We wrote down the savings that you had. We looked at it written in black and white. We checked in to see what the first feeling is, the despair, the lack of security that you feel. We tried to correlate that with the feeling in your body and the voices in your head. And that last sentence, the amount of money in my savings means that I am, when you complete that sentence, that kind of sums up how you look at yourself when you try to think about your savings. So I just put down, typically the clients, when I work with clients, the kinds of things that they tell me is that they feel sadness, they feel loss, they feel disappointment, there is embarrassment and shame. The statements that come up are, I'm a loser, I never feel safe, I never feel taken care of. This manifests physically as tightness in the chest, knots in the stomach, and a stiff neck, painful shoulders often. Another thing that you might have noticed is when you began to look at your savings and think about it, a loss in the past might have come up. So for me, like the loss of my mother, for other people, it's a parent doing badly in business, making a huge loss in the business. Those loss is usually associated with savings. And if you had a memory that came up, or even if something's coming up now, know that whatever comes up is what you need to work with, right? We invited your guide in the form of source, God, whatever you want to call it, into the space where we are talking here. And so whatever is coming up is the right thing. So don't dismiss anything that comes up. Just write it down. It's important information for you to work with. So if you think about how difficult this is, right? If you think about when the thought of your savings comes up, when you write it down, and when you look at it, the reaction in your mind and body is what we call the typical stress response in the body, right? The typical physiological response, which is fight, flight, or freeze. And so there are different ways in which this manifests when you're dealing with money. So when you talk about fight, it might be that when you have to talk to somebody about it, when you your first defense will be pushing them away and saying that no, this is, it'll be a very defensive reaction where if I go back to my reactions with my husband, it might be, why don't you trust me? Why do I have to talk about this to you? Why can't you? Am I not an adult? Why can't I? So it's that kind of fight where you're avoiding looking at the thing that you really need to look at. And flight is just a complete avoidance of it, right? Because and freezing is sort of being stuck in inaction. So the other thing that happens, like I talked about earlier, you become ungrounded. So although we started talking about how you need to be fully embodied, when you're looking at something that is stressful, what happens is that you become ungrounded. Your sort of entire presence is around your head, or maybe around the upper torso, where you're feeling all of this stress. So you're not embodied. Your mind is racing. These are kind of really primal reactions. They're survival reactions, and Margaret likes to call them first chakra reactions, because they're reactions that challenge your survival. You feel challenged, and so the place from which that is arising is a very a primal survival reaction. And so the purpose of showing this to you is that if this is a trigger for you, right? If your savings are not where you want them to be, and if you feel all of this emotion when you look at your savings, then is it any wonder that you have not been able to do more to change where your savings are? It's not, because this is what happens to you. Your mind and body react in a way where you're either in flight or fight. You're ungrounded. Your mind is all over the place, and you don't even know a lot of the time all of the memories. So one of the videos that I sent you when we were talking about money, is about feeling safe, for example, which is what your savings does, right? Was this image of me when I was a really little child, needing. We lived in a joint family in Bombay, so there were lots of aunts and uncles around, and so my mom was really busy providing for all of them, and she was just sitting down to eat, and I needed to go to the party, and my aunt just yelled at me, and I was little, like I was what must have been 4, and she yelled and she said, "Why don't you give her some peace of mind? Why And I felt so bad, because I was being a bad person for wanting attention from my mother. And unbelievably, that I'll turn 60 this year. So 56 years ago, that incident that happened when I was 4 is what came up for me when I started looking at savings in this way. And so that sense of insecurity, that sense that you are not supposed to be taken care of, that there is nobody to take care of you, and it's not logical, right? A little child is not making sense of her surroundings and saying, "Oh no, she didn't mean that." You can't do that when you're that little, but that does go in and settle in, and then other things build up on it, and every time you have to look at something like this, you get triggered, and so then you're not able to do anything. And then with the way we behave and our beliefs around it just perpetuate the situation. So the whole point of this slide is to say, just learn, have some compassion for yourself, right? Because this is the person who is reacting. This little child inside you is the person who is reacting when you look at your savings. So the fact that you have not been able to do anything about it, and that you're still sort of going around and round in the maybe feast and famine kind of way, or maybe you've never been to a feast in terms of your savings, is as a result of this, of having this primal reaction and not feeling safe enough to even look and work on this aspect. So if anybody has any questions, just let me know, and I can. I will have some time for questions at the end. I realize that I'm taking more time than I expected, but let's at least get through the debt. And the first one is always the one that takes most time, because that's where we need to spend explaining what is going on. So what did we learn? So what you learned is that the statement that you wrote down, or the verbal, the dialogue going on in your mind, that when you wrote down the amount of savings that you have, is what your inner critic is saying to you every time you think about saving. So it might be that there are hundreds of times a day when the thought of your savings crosses your mind, and every time there is this physical reaction in your body. So who in their right minds would want to walk into that kind of physical and emotional turmoil? Just, most of us would want to stay away from it. So when your inner critic is beating you up, like I said in the last slide, just tell her or him to calm down. That take a breath, be compassionate to yourself, feel yourself almost hugging yourself. Just really understand that these emotions are, it's the best way to understand them is that the emotions came first and then your savings. So it's not that you did something wrong and you created savings that are then causing the emotions, but it's that the reactions you had with that when you were a child, and the lack of safety that you felt when you were a child, is what is creating circumstances in your life to perpetuate that sense of lack of safety. And so it's really important to work on that, do that inner work in order to be able to overcome that sense of lack of safety and step into a place of feeling safe and valuable and creating the savings account that you need. So I know this is, we've worked on something that is difficult to look at. So let's just take a minute. Let's just gather ourselves and again, feel yourself inside your body. Feel the top of your head. Feel the soles of your feet. Feel where you're sitting on the chair. Take a deep breath and let it go. Feel yourself breathing from the soles of your feet all the way to the top of your head. And let it go. So the remaining two things that I have on the slide presentation are debt and income. And it's the same process that we are going through. So write down your total level of debt. So this is a best guess. We are not talking about a secured debt like a mortgage, a good debt. But the debt that typically credit card debt, unsecured debt on maybe a line of credit or something, that the debt that makes you cringe. It's the same process. You write it down, and again, the idea is to really face it and understand what this is doing to your mind and body. So feel your feet, feel the top of your head. Take a deep breath and look at the number. And write down what the first feeling is that comes up. And understand and notice where you feel it. And especially, it's especially instructive as well if this is a different type of feeling. So if you felt fear when you looked at your savings, and if you feel shame or embarrassment when you're looking at your debt, it's instructive to know where those different emotions and feelings live in your body. Again, that's the reason for understanding how to feel fully in your body and look at the emotions that you feel. As you are fully present with the level of your debt and with your feelings, become aware of what the voice in your head is saying. This means that I am. This level of debt means that I am. What? Again, just giving you a few minutes to finish that. But as you write that, again, what I want you to understand is that the feelings precede the debt. Your sense of value, your sense of worth, all of which you grew up with. Those type of statements like, I'm an idiot, why can't I make it? This amount of debt means that I've made a ton of mistakes, I'm worthless. Those are statements that have been going on inside you before you ever had debt. And your debt is just a manifestation of that emotion in your money. When you understand that, what comes up is a sense of compassion for yourself. The memory that often comes up here is a memory of a battle or a betrayal. Something that you've not forgiven yourself for. And I'll tell you something that's been coming up for me that I've been clearing over the past several months. Because of the way I grew up and because of the way we talked about money in my family, I had a very difficult time talking to laying clear boundaries with my kids about money. And because I didn't know how to talk clearly about money, I had a difficult time talking with my husband about money. We have very different experiences with money growing up and very different ideas about how money should be spent and how you talk about money and how you deal with money, completely different paradigms. And I was terrified to talk to him. And I was also terrified of my kids being terrified. It was all, so I didn't know how to talk about money at all. And so I did stupid things and did not teach my children well about how to spend. I mean, they're amazing adults now, but there is something that I didn't give them in terms of money, in terms of how you talk about money, how you account for money, how you spend money, how you budget money, and all of those, because I did not know how to do that. And that is guilt that I have been carrying with me for a long time. And so what I realized was that I needed to clear that guilt and I needed to forgive myself before I could be. So what I kept manifesting is that that betrayal, that trauma, that guilt, that punishment was me continually getting into debt. I might have all great excuses for why I got into debt, but it was a burden that I was placing on myself because I had not forgiven myself for that betrayal of my responsibility to my kids. and because I was stuck there and because I didn't even know, but these images of when I was, a scene when I was yelling at my daughter for not having used her credit card correctly, but it's because I had never told her how to do it. Uh, that kept coming up, and when I started working on it and clearing it, there was so much guilt, and it was such a relief to finally face that and let it go and be compassionate towards myself, allowing myself the compassion, because I figured out why I couldn't talk about it, because my father never knew how to talk about money, and his way to deal with it was to hide it from my mom, and we all knew about it. So it's those kinds of memories that are tied in and manifest as debt in your life. So that guilt of betrayal, whether it's betrayal of yourself or someone who betrayed you, and so pay attention to if those types of memories are coming up when you look at your debt. Just to re-emphasize this again, your mind and body are going through a typical stress response, and the stress response started when you were little. And it's again impossible to take action because these are reactions based on your earliest experiences, and it takes time to delve into that and clear them as you go along. And each person has different levels. For some people, it might be savings and debt that's the most traumatic. For some people, it might be income and toxic money. So every person has a different set of these types of money that create their story. Again, this debt is typically more difficult to look at and more frightening than the savings aspect of it. So just take a breath. Just look at that image of that person meditating under the tree. And take a breath and let it go and feel some love for yourself, for that little person inside you who gets activated every time you try to really look at these aspects of money in your life. Take some time to love yourself. I'm going to go through the income as well. It's 9:56, but I'm going to ask you to stay till it's just a few more slides. It's a repetition of the kind of thing that we've been doing, but I would like to just at least finish the income. We won't be able to get into income goals and toxic money, but I'll spend a few minutes talking about it. So your third type of money that Margaret talks about is income. So we're doing the same thing here. We're writing down your total level of current income. Again, bring yourself into your body. Take a deep breath from the soles of your feet to the top of your head and let it go. Look at the number and say out loud, it's never enough. And write down on a scale of 1 to 10, write down how true that feels. Again, what is the first emotion that comes up, the first emotional feeling that comes up? Typically here again, it is a sense of insecurity, it's fear, there is also sometimes shame and embarrassment. What is the voice in your head saying? When you say this is not enough, what does that feel? And what does the voice in your head say? Typically, again, you feel fear, you feel shame, there's disappointment because you wanted something better, there's despair. Physically, you feel knots in your stomach. People feel their chest getting tight, the shoulders feel heavy. The statements that clients have said to me are, I'm stuck. Often, and this speaks to your paradigm, right? The statement that this is my lot. People like me live like this. There's nothing, so it's a kind of belief that you grow up with, and it's very difficult to move out of, because there's a certain sense of loyalty to your tribe, a sense that if you break this income level and move up, you're somehow being disloyal to your family of origin, and therefore you don't belong there anymore. And as a survival instinct, you don't want to lose your family of birth. You don't want to feel an outsider to your family of birth. So if you have, even though on the outside you might feel that you want to make much more money than your family of origin did, the sense of loyalty to your tribe and the importance of being part of that original tribe often keeps you stuck, in the sense of either not ever making it beyond that, or when you make it beyond that, circumstances coming up, and it might feel arbitrary, but it's because you have that belief that it's not safe to make more money than your family of origin did, that something will come up. Somebody, there may be an illness, there may be an appliance breakdown, there may be a car repair, unexpected things come up that take you down. So it's like the thermostat. Lots of people talk about you talk about thermostat in terms of your weight. There's a similar thermostat in terms of your money and the level of money that the primal part of you feels comfortable with, in terms of savings, in terms of debt, in terms of income, and even in terms of income goals. What is it safe to want? So again, this might seem like repetition, but it's important to understand that it's what you experienced in childhood, those beliefs about what is right, in quotes, for you to earn and save and owe, that, and all of the experiences you had, like the ones that I talked about, that are keeping you stuck. Those are all the things that make up your unique money story, right? And what you have to do is to learn how to recognize it, untether it from your mind-body reaction, and let it go, so that you can then write a new story, and you can then readjust your thermostat while feeling safe and secure. So the idea is to bring in the sense of safety and value and worth within you, and then see it manifest out into the world. In Hinduism, we talk about, there is this, I wrote a blog post about it recently called Tattvamasi, that is thou, right? So what you see outside is what is within you, and it's not a new concept. So what you're seeing manifest in your money is what you have as a sense of value and worth, and beliefs about what is right and wrong in money that are deep inside you. What is different about what we did today is that we recognize that there is an almost unconscious reaction in your body when you begin to even think about it, because it brings up early childhood memories and experiences, and those experiences are what created your current experience of money. So how do we deal with this? So we've gone through several difficult emotions and exposure, and I've given you enough experience talk about what my clients have said. So before we end today, I want to be sure that we do a little bit of work to take down some of these feelings that we felt. And typically you so one of the techniques that I use is tapping, right? Emotional freedom technique, which is an evidence-based stress reduction technique. So I told you earlier that I'm a senior research statistician. Part of what I do is design studies in health and evaluate studies and look at them. And so from that space, from that level of knowledge, I can tell you that EFT has a very, very sound literature behind it, right? And it has been shown to be really effective in severe conditions such as PTSD. It is very effective in breaking down these beliefs, and also if you use it with affirmations and visualization, it becomes really, really powerful. So what I typically do is I use tapping, and I use guided meditations that are individualized to an individual person's circumstance and situation, and that is what has resulted in the kind of experiences that my clients have had. So if you're not familiar with tapping, I just put this picture in there so that you can see what the tapping points are. These are acupressure points. And there's one, this is called the karate chop point. Typically, this is the eyebrow point. This is another eyebrow point. This is below the eye. Then there's below the nose, the cleft of the chin, and your shoulder blade point, and the top of your head. There are other points, but even if you just use the points on your face, or even very often just your shoulder blade point, that becomes very effective. So I just want to take a couple of minutes. I'm going to set a timer so that we're not, I know you guys have spent a lot of time with me already, and I really appreciate that. We're just going to spend a couple of minutes just focusing on where you're feeling the stress. I'm not going to say any words, because each person has a different story that we tap to. But I want to give you this, because if you have written down the statements, what you will do is, once you figure out how tapping brings down your stress level, you will be able to use those statements. You typically just use the statements, I'm a loser, this means that I am. And even though it's negative, what you want to first do is to clear out all of the stress response that has arisen as a result of looking at your savings and your debt and your income. So for right now, I just want you to focus in on a space where physically where it feels, where you feel the most yucky feeling, and just go, we'll just go through the tapping points for 2 minutes, and we can see how that brings down your level of stress. So we just start with the inner eyebrow point, the outer eyebrow point, and really focus in on where you're feeling. If you're feeling knots in your stomach, you can say, I feel stressed. I feel my chest feeling tight. This is very uncomfortable. I didn't want to do this. Looking at my money this way is not comfortable. I didn't realize how much stress I was carrying about it. This feels uncomfortable. All of these statements that I make about myself, it's really uncomfortable. I can feel the knots in my stomach. This doesn't feel good. This does not feel good. I can see how much stress I carry. And you don't even have to say anything. You can just feel the stress. Focus on it, breathe into it, and just tap. And if you feel awkward, if you're outside somewhere, you can just, that was 2 minutes. And even with that 2 minutes, if you were feeling in some of those, we asked how bad you feel when you say it's never enough. And even if you felt a 10 and it came down to a 9 or an 8, that level of difference in energy, that amount of energy release is huge and can create huge changes in how you present yourself in the world. So that was just a very quick experience of tapping. I realized that it's not enough, and if we really wanted to go deep into it, it would take a lot of time. So what did we do tonight? We talked about how your mind and body is inextricably linked in how much money you save, how much money you owe, how much money you earn. We learned how we can use this information, and I realized that the tapping was really short, but you'll get this entire webinar. And what I would encourage you to do is to really write down those statements and tap to that, tap through those points on your face, saying those statements aloud. And what will happen is, as you begin to clear the stress, your mind stops racing. You get more embodied when you begin to think about your debt and your savings and your income. And you begin to develop, because the stress is released, you have energy to unleash your creativity and to change your story. As I said in the beginning, I'm just scratching the surface here. This is really, really deep work. All of you who are here and who will see this webinar later can use tonight's experience to continue to work on clearing these blocks. But if you wanted to go ahead, what is next is we only touched on 3 of the 5 types of money tonight, right? We talked about debt, savings, and income. When you start talking about what your income goals are, and when you try to stretch your income goal a little bit, the stuff that comes up is mind bending, actually, and it really gives you a sense of how your paradigm works to keep you locked where you are. And toxic money is money in which you're somehow relating, you're either getting from a person with whom you have a toxic relationship. So this might be a divorce settlement, it might be an inheritance over which there is a battle, or it might be from, if from your parents who you really don't want to take money from, but you're in a situation where you have to, and you hate doing it, and so there's a lot of toxicity involved with it. And that's a really important aspect of money that you need to work through and clear. So this is, you may have experiences when you went through the webinar and looked at it. This is really deep work. It's not a one-time fix. At the same time, if you use the work in the webinar, for those of you who got the clarity, use the tapping, and I will be creating a YouTube channel with some tapping that I will send to you. But for those of you who would like to continue and explore this work with me, there are several options. Okay, so I have, let me skip that slide. I have membership plans where, and I have group courses, and I have one-to-one coaching. The coaching that I do is, it's not just a one size fits all. It's individualized to make sure that you get exactly what you need when you need it. And so it, depending on what your unique money story is, the best option for you that I would recommend would vary. It might be the membership plan might be enough for you. It might be that you can do a 3-month course and then be on your way, or it might be that you really need the intense work that is available in one-to-one coaching. So the best way to figure out what that is, before just let me thank you again for whether you're here present in person or whether you listen to this session. When I send it to you, for those of you who have registered, thank you for sitting through this, because this is really important work. The next step, I would say, is to set up a clarity strategy action session. It's a free 60 to 90 minute free call where we will use the work that you did today to explore the best option for you among the various possibilities. And if we spend that 60 to 90 minute time and come to the conclusion that this is not the right option for you, then that is fine. But I think since you were called to sign up for this webinar, I would urge you to sign up for this free call. That's the next step in this session. So there is a link here that you can sign up. I'll also be sending this link to you. It's in the document that I sent you. So if you go to this page, you'll see that you can set up an appointment to talk to me. It's called a clarity strategy action session, and you can set up a time to talk. It's a 60 to 90 minute free call. And we will chart out what your unique money story is. Just expand this, the work we did today a little bit more. It'll be possible to do it specific to your particular situation. And so once again, sign up. It's free. You have nothing to lose. There is no sales push here, because if it's not the right fit for you, then there's no point in you signing up for the coaching, right? So it's well worth your time to sign up for a strategy session and then see where to go from there. And then just to give you a sense of what the different things are, the membership plan will have 2 calls a month. It's 2 tapping and guided meditations videos, and there'll be question and answer sessions, and also an opportunity to connect individually with me via email and chat. The group course package is a 3-month course that'll clear 6 primary blocks. It's got 8 45-minute sessions. It'll have recordings of all sessions and access to email, text, or phone support. And also there'll be extra bonuses, which I haven't actually put down here, but there will be other bonuses in that. And then there's the one-to-one coaching, which typically I suggest people do for at least a year. So as I end this, I want to say that I would be honored to take you on a journey if this is the right journey for you, which we can discover when you sign up for the 90-minute free call. This work is my life's work. To see my clients drop years of programming and step into their power is the most incredible feeling in the world. To see them free themselves and to soar as the bird in my logo does. To create a tribe of fully integrated human beings, unafraid to step into their power and change the world, that I know is my calling. So I hope you will take the next step for you to step into your full power and set up a call with me so that we can explore how best to take you and help you to get to your highest potential. There's a link again. You'll get this the slide set so that you'll be able to set up the call. I really want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your attention. I am so honored and grateful that you chose to spend this time with me. And I really, really do hope that I will talk with you soon. So thank you once again. Have a good night. It's 10:20. It's been a long time. Thank you for staying on. And for those of you who stayed on, I will be sending you the gift and we'll talk. Before I jump off, is there anybody who has any questions? All right. Thanks, guys. See you soon.